21. The age in which you can legally drink in America. The first half of the US's most sophisticated tea-drinking rapper.
What one, Britain?
The summation of 9 plus 10.
21.
And it's also the age you have to be to get into this video. Yo guys, it is your boy descending into a state that can only be described as borderline barbaric Trim Niran here. And I'm back once again, this time to bring you my best under 21 players from the Premier League this season. Now, before we get into the nitty gritty of I don't know if that's even a phrase. I know what people are thinking this video might be. It's the best under 21 players potential wise in the division. Oh, but Mason Greenwood's gonna be really, I know he is, right, but has he been good this season? Okay-ish, I guess. I was gonna say no, but the chances of him being top 3, where you would probably put him based on ceiling, is maybe not where he's gonna be. There's also gonna be a couple of players in this video that are 22 as we speak right now. The cutoff point is you have to be 21 or below from when this season started. So no Abere Eze, no James Justin, and no Christian Pulisic, whose birthday was 6 days before the season started. And obviously this is the halfway stage of the season. There's a couple of players that haven't had much game time that I'm sure will impress by the end. The likes of Martin Odegaard, Vitinha from Wolves, Saicedo at Brighton, but they haven't played enough games yet to really be considered for this video. It's crazy actually, because I myself would have been in this one if it wasn't for me being 23. You see, you thought I was gonna talk about the knee injury, which did happen as well, but first of all, we're going to just talk about some players. We're just going to quick fire go through some, and then I'll do my actual rankings at the end, which is going to be probably very difficult. First of all, Arsenal youngster Bukayo Saka, whose form since the start of the year has been absolutely ridiculous. He's got 5 goals and 2 assists in the league this season. Those 5 goals actually make him the highest scoring under 21 player in the Premier League for the campaign so far. There's just a lot to like about him. He's very intelligent as a footballer. He's obviously very versatile, very mature as well for his age. I think he's still, is he 19? I can't remember whether he's 18 or 19, but he's very mature, very level-headed. He's just stuck Arsenal, that whole rest of the team, in the backpack, bro. Zip it up. There's a second zip as well. There's the first one's gone round. And then the second zip, like secure level. He's a very good player. I like him. I've said literally since day one that I think he will be a very key fixture of the England team, but his capabilities are far too good to be omitted or to be swapped out for another defensive midfielder. Gareth Southgate, I'm looking at you, okay? The waistcoat doesn't save you from this. I know building the England team around certain players is a bit of a touchy subject for some people because we've tried doing it in the past. It's not worked out well, but there's always going to be players that are key fixtures of it that you can kind of mold the rest of the team about, and I think Phil Foden is one of those players as well. 5 goals and 3 assists in total across the season off the back of that ridiculous Liverpool performance, and it's my fault. I disrespected him. Earlier in the season, about 2 months ago, I said that Saka had been better than him this season, and I still stand by that. I think Saka had been better than Foden up until that point, but since then, and since City have seemed just invincible, Phil Foden is a massive part of that. I know Gundogan's getting all of the plaudits because he's scoring all of the goals and getting the assists or whatever, but Foden is making that team tick. Even playing out of position at times, playing as a false 9, playing out wide. He deserves to be Spanish. He deserved to be Spanish and playing with Iniesta. 2 man of the match performances this year. He's a very good player and a very good shout for number 1, I think, in this list. Another one, I think, personally, I've been told I'm overreacting, but you look at the stats and you look at the guy perform, he scored some very important goals. Pedro Neto of Wolves is a baller, okay? I don't want to hear otherwise. The Wolves massive know what I'm talking about, okay? They also had my back when I said that Conor Cody had been shit, but everybody who wasn't a Wolves fan, for some reason, thought that we're not talking about Conor Cody. Scoring, obviously, a last-minute goal against Chelsea. I think he's the top assister out of anyone who's under 21. He's got the most for successful dribbles. He's got the most in terms of key passes. On top of the assists, you know, chances created too. Very, very impressive for a man playing at Wolves. They obviously lost Diogo Jota. I think they're probably hurting from that a little bit. They're hurting from Jimenez being out. They're hurting just from being in a general lack of form from some of the other key players who were massive for them in the last 2 years. But Neto has been very, very, very impressive. I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if we see him getting called up for Portugal. I don't know whether he has been before, but he basically already plays for them anyway. But now, 2 Chelsea players next, and this is about to get controversial because first of all, we're going to talk about a player that I apparently have an agenda against. This is Callum Hudson-Odoi, okay? Now, it's not listen, I don't know how many times I've had to say this. It's not an agenda because I dislike the man. Bayern Munich were interested in him. They clearly saw something in him. I know he's struggled with injuries. He's had some pretty big ones. But I need to see more from this man before we can put him on the same level as Phil Foden. Chelsea fans, I understand, okay? You see a player who's a baller and you're like, yep, and that's fine. I understand. Liverpool fans do it as well. But until he starts putting numbers on the board consistently, he's played a lot more this season and still his goal scoring and actual goal contributing isn't the level that it should be if he's going to be in the same top tier bracket as the others. But what I will say, this season I've seen a lot more promise. Even though those goal contributions have been okay, 2 goals, 2 assists in the league, I think a further 2 goals in the Champions League. That's genuinely not awful. But more promisingly than that, when Chelsea looked absolutely diabolical, I'm talking that Manchester City game, he came off the bench and immediately looked like their best player by like a country mile. I need more numbers over a longer period of time before I can put him in that bracket. We move on to Mason Mount, who's a lot more of a shoo-in as far as a Chelsea player is concerned, in my opinion. Again, 3 assists and 3 goals. I watched him against Tottenham and he just ran the show, man. Honestly, his dribbling capabilities, I don't think are talked about enough. And Frank Lampard really liked him as well. I'm pretty sure he adopted him during the course of his managerial spell at Chelsea. I feel like most Chelsea attacks run through him. He's got 2.5 key passes per game, I do believe, which is a pretty decent amount. Now we move on to a Liverpool player, Curtis Jones next. Now, I've been accused of being a bit too unbiased, especially during the best players of the season video, but I still feel like I wasn't too harsh there because a lot of people expected us to win the league this year, and whilst we've had a lot of injuries and there's a lot of reasons as to why we're struggling, equally the personnel haven't performed as well as we should have done. I do think Curtis Jones, who's next up, has been a player that I've been impressed with at points, certainly the first half of the Premier League season. Recently, I haven't been massively impressed, but he looked really good when he came off the bench against West Ham, of course. More actually than the Premier League. I think he's been good in the Champions League. But even despite that drop-off, I think he probably does get himself a spot in the top 10. He's just such a confident footballer. I love watching him. Emile Smith-Rowe is probably someone you wouldn't have expected to talk about. Not because he didn't look like a good player at a sort of B-team level or under 23s. I just didn't expect him to get the breakthroughs. I didn't expect him to get the minutes this season, really. Came in sort of playing in that number 10 role, and Arsenal looked so much better with him in the side. Him and Bouquet were running things. And in 10 appearances all season, he's got 4 assists, which is a really solid amount for, you know, only half the games we've actually had across the course of the season. Now, Mason Greenwood, okay, I'll get it out of the way. He's not been great, okay? It's not Anthony Martial levels, all right? Don't worry. But he's been decidedly average, okay? And this list is about who's been under 21 and who's been good this season. I don't care about previous seasons. I don't care about promise. I care about how good you've been in this campaign. And 1 goal and 1 assist in the league is not great. I know he's not started every game, but for him personally, I'm sure it's a shame because for me, when I watch him, he's one of the best natural finishers I think's come out of England in a while. But his bifootal ability, that's definitely not a word. The fact that he can use his right and left in such equal measure is a massive skill set that he's gonna take advantage of throughout his whole career. Next theme, Chelsea right backs. Well, one that is there and one that isn't there anymore. We start with one that is Rhys James, who I think is probably one of the most well-balanced right backs in the league. He's a very good player. He's got good quality in the final third as well. Very physical. The guy is stupid, strength-wise, pace-wise, but he did have a bit of a slow spell towards the end of Frank Lampard's reign. And carrying on with the theme that I mentioned, Tariq Lamptey, who was once of Chelsea, now plays for Brighton. A bit injury hit this season for him. Obviously got that red card as well, which kept him out of a game. As he's only played 11 games, but a goal and assist from right back isn't too bad. He's just a very good player overall. Incredibly so for a man who's basically 4'7". Couple more honourable mentions now. We've got Wesley Fofana, who I'm a massive fan of. I love this guy. They only bought him for 10 mil, or it was something between 10 or 20. Who were Leicester's scouts, man? It's crazy. Fofana's not really an honourable mention. That actually does him a disservice because I think he'll he'll be quite high up. He's a very solid player. Again, very physical, but very intelligent defensively as well. Ilian Melier of Leeds, I think, is the first goalkeeper that I've spoken about. Potentially be the only goalkeeper I speak about here, actually. I will be completely honest with you. I had no idea who he was until about halfway through their championship season. I don't know whether they bought him last year, but it's a coup. That performance against Burnley was insane. He got man of the match there. He's got 2 man of the matches in total for the season, which is obviously not bad as a goalkeeper. 7 clean sheets as well in a Leeds defense, which is not amazing and is very good at leaking chances, not necessarily goals. Dwight McNeil of Burnley, I think, has had even more of an improvement this season. I think there was a period where he wasn't actually playing. He's a very good winger. For completed dribbles as well this season, he actually ranks 16th out of anybody in the league. Got Declan Rice as well, who's 22 now. He's been fundamental to West Ham's success this season, you know, still being in a Champions League spot. And it's hard to pinpoint what he does for the team because he's a holding midfielder, I guess, and just lets things tick over. It can be very easy to overlook him. And finally, Tyrick Mitchell from Crystal Palace. I hope Eagles fans didn't think I was going to forget about you lot. Yeah, I love Tyrick Mitchell. It's definitely nothing to do with the fact that I signed him on Football Manager before he broke into the first team. Don't watch that. Nah, he's actually really good. Yet another Crystal Palace youngster, fullback especially as well after Wan-Bissaka, who's come in just out of nowhere and been thrown into the deep end and look really good. Patrick Van Aanholt's been a pretty good mid-table left-back for a number of years now, and Tyrick Mitchell's come in and Palace fans, like, prefer him. He's got the most tackles per game out of anybody in the whole division. That's not bad. That's not bad. Maybe he needs to work on his game going forward, but defensively, he's sound. Which brings us on to the top 10. And first of all, I'm going to say a couple of people that are going to miss out here. All right, Melier, massively impressed with him. Definitely the best under-21 goalkeeper. I'd probably put him 11th. Spoiler alert, that's not in the top 10. It's probably harsh on him to not make it into the top 10. Just imagine I put him there. And Mason Greenwood as well. I mentioned him at the start. He's going to have a great future, but I'm sure United fans as well would admit he's just not got going this season, and I'm sure he would as well. So let's start at number 10. First of all, yeah, I'm cheating. Look, listen, hear me out on this one. At number 10, we've got Curtis Jones and Callum Hudson-Odoi join. Now, for Curtis, again, the Champions League, really impressed with him in cup competitions. Really, really impressed with him against West Ham. Super impressed with him off the bench. But that level of consistency, there's been a number of games that I've watched where he's not looked amazing, but he and Liverpool's form just hasn't been that great this season. That's all it is. If I was to do this at the start of the campaign and just rate it based off potential, he would easily be top 6, I would say. Callum Hudson-Odoi. Yep, I'm gonna give him the props, okay? When I've seen him this season, he's looked impressive. Again, the numbers and consistency, maybe not quite there, but as a bright spark coming off the bench in a Chelsea side that was absolutely diabolical. Yeah, I've actually been pleasantly surprised by him. Number 9, now people might have a bit of an issue with this one based on a limited amount of games played. Emile Smith-Rowe. He was very instrumental in that complete switch around in form. Yeah, he's a very good footballer, very technical. His passing and his vision is unbelievable. 4 assists in 10 is really, really good. It's the mentality aspect of this as well. I can't stress that enough. Being thrown in, you're being, as a youngster who's come through the academy, literally dashed into a starting 11 that is underperforming to biblical proportions. Like, this is a team that should be fighting for Europe easily, and is being talked about as a relegation candidate, and immediately just made it your own. In at number 8, we've got the most underrated player here, in my opinion, in Tyrick Mitchell. Maybe Palace fans might think that I've put him a little bit too high. I have no idea, but I know they do rate him highly regardless, and he's got me fantasy football points. So, at number 7 now, we've got Rhys James. Very good defensive, solid right back, but equally good going forward. Couple of assists. Probably would be higher if it wasn't for a couple disaster classes in the middle of the season so far. Getting towards the mid-table now, a team that usually would be associated with that, but certainly aren't there this season. West Ham, Declan Rice. He's a very calm and composed footballer, and I really like that about him. It's no surprise that Chelsea wanted him. I know that's kind of gone away now with Lampard getting sacked, but it would have been interesting to see him there. Though at this point, that would kind of be a bit of a downgrade, actually. So, speaking of which, at number 5, we've got a Chelsea midfielder in the form of Mason Mount next. Yeah, I like Mason Mount. Again, I think most Chelsea attacks kind of run through him. Maybe not quite as standout as last year, but I think that's because he was bursting onto the scene alongside Tammy Abraham for the first time, and Chelsea looked better as a collective then too. And at number 4, we've got someone who's got a shout of being a centre-back in team of the season overall alongside the likes of Fabinho or Stones, and that's Wesley Fofana, who, again, I just can't say I can't say any more about the guy. I've already praised him loads. He's just a very assured centre-back, and it's so hard to come from a different league into England as a defender. Right, in at number 3, onto the podium places. Get your champagne out, which he's not legally allowed to do in America. Bouquet Saka. Now, to be honest with you, there's an argument for him being number 1. I hear this, there's an argument, certainly from being number 2. And the people that I've put at number 2 and 3 arguably are interchangeable. Statistically, he's been unreal, but not on the level of the 2 that I put above him, I feel. Whether that's because he's playing an underperforming Arsenal side, I don't know. But it does not change the fact that he's literally backpacked that entire team. At such a young age, his maturity is incredible. But I think he gets disrespected because he should be in a Team of the Year conversation. Bouquet Saka has been unbelievable, just period. Regardless of age, category, or whatever, Bouquet Saka has been amazing. But for the amount of categories and statistics that Pedro Neto leads in comparison in a similar position at a team that's struggling even further, I have to put him second. I know football isn't just about stats. To be the leading under 21 in terms of assists, in terms of key passes, in terms of dribbles completed, you can't deny that. Like, he's been unreal. I know I've been told I overhype him a bit too much. Can't get away from the stats. His contributions have been really good and in important times as well, which means that I'm falling on the sword. Phil Foden is my number 1. The Manchester City midfielder, even in terms of that dreaded word ceiling, I think it's him as well. Phil Foden is probably one of the most naturally gifted English players that we've had. I don't even know who since. He's he's just ridiculous, man. It's actually unfair. It's kind of close. It's not like it's an easy thing for him to be number 1, but I think he's just been that extra level of whipped cream on the top of your hot beverage. But I've been rambling for flipping ages here. Let me know what you think about this list down in the comment section. Who would be your number 1? Who would be your top 10? Is there anyone that I missed? If you enjoyed the video though, slap a like on it and subscribe if you are new to the channel. You can also follow me on social media. It is at @officialfng on Twitter and on Insta. But it's been a pleasure ranting at you guys today. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy yourselves and goodbye.